So today we're going to prune this climbing rose. Now the first thing we need to know is that we always prune this in the late winter. Climbing roses produce all of their flowers on this year's growth. So at the moment it's sleeping, but when it wakes up in spring, it will then produce new growth, which is where your flowers will be. So we want to be doing this before it wakes up, otherwise you'll end up cutting all the flowers off. When we're thinking about pruning a climbing rose, the main things we're doing are for the health of the rose. So when we're looking at it, the first things we want to remove are any dead, damaged or diseased branches. So anything you'll see it's very dark brown, you'll be able to tell when you look at it. This one, looking at it, hasn't got a lot. So this piece here you can see is very dark brown colour. This will be dead. It was just pruned a bit too close last year, so it's died back. So anything like this, little brown stubs, you want to remove. So we'll do that now first. So you can see this bit has been damaged either in the wind or just by people brushing past it. So this is a good example of damaged branches. So with this, it's damaged here, but we want to take it back to the next set of leaves here, like that. So the next thing we want to think about with pruning climbing roses, it goes hand in hand with training it. So we don't want to start cutting until we've got the shape of the rose of where you want it. So this one is on a trellis. We're going for a sort of triangular upright shape. You could have a pergola, obelisk, pillar, a fence, whatever. They're very versatile. So first we want to tie in probably 4 or 5 of the main canes. So down here at the bottom we can see these big thick ones are the main canes. So first things first is we want to create a framework across the structure of about 5 canes spread out. From there we will then prune back. So when you're choosing which branches or main canes you want to train in, we want to be choosing the newer, sort of greener, thicker ones. They have the most vigour in them and they are going to create the most growth this season, which means the most flowers. So if you've got quite a few to choose from, as you can see here in the middle, there's quite a few, choose the strongest canes first. You can always remove other ones that are in the way, right back down to the bottom. We don't want to be having about 8 through the middle here. We want lots of space. So here we can see we have a young cane growing up behind it, which I've tied into the framework for the future. However, there are these ones in front. We really don't want too many in front of each other because they'll just shade out all the leaves and you'll get disease. So this one here is an older cane. There are some shoots on it, but I think what we'll do is we'll take it right back down to here, cut this off, and then you will have more space for the other one to grow. So taking that one out. This cane is a very young, vigorous, very green. As you can see, this is how much growth it's put on in the last year. So this is a really healthy one. So we want to keep this. So the best thing to do with this is to tie it in. We can always shorten it back if it's getting too tall of where we want it to go, but it's a really useful one. So we will tie this into the structure as well to keep. Again, here, this is another very vigorous shoot and it's going in the right direction. So again, we're going to tie this into the structure to keep for this year's flowers as well. You want to try and cover as much of the structure with main canes as possible. So we've got one right out here, we've got one right out here, we've got this middle one, and then we've got a couple here up here. So this one in here would do well if we were to train it into the middle here. We'll sort of fill this space with flowers as well. Left to their own devices, climbing roses will want to shoot straight up into the sky and flower just at the top. That is naturally how they grow. If we want to be promoting more flowers, we need to be training the stems as horizontally as we can. Now on this structure, because it's a triangle, we're fairly limited. But if you've got branches in the middle here and there's a space, or you see up here, we've got a bit of a space at the top. We want to try, if we can, and if the branches are flexible enough, to try and train them horizontally. So this bit here, it's growing this year, but it will continue to grow up, and left to its own device, it will go straight up. We don't really want that, but next year we can train it along this way horizontally and we'll get more flowers that way. The same with this section in the middle. We've got a bit here that's all facing up. You can see it's growing straight up, and the leaves and the flowers are on the top. If we pull this down horizontally and tie it in there, you're more likely to get more growth along the horizontal bits, which will then flower. So we'll tie this in here. So here you can see we've got two branches rubbing on each other. Now in the wind, they will continue to rub, and what you'll get on the stems here is a wound, which a disease will get into, especially when it's so wet. So really we don't want to have any crossing stems like this. So it doesn't matter too much on these climbing roses at the moment, because we're just training in the main stems, and then once we've done that, we will then shorten back all of these long bits that are all getting tangled up and rubbing on each other. But it's something to watch out for, especially when you're training the branches in. Make sure they're not too close to each other, and they certainly shouldn't be touching. Okay, so we can see that we've got some main canes in here now, filling the space. So these are all the vertical lines. We also have this one, which is sort of loose at the moment. Now there isn't really a space in here to be tying it in. So what we'll do instead is we'll create shorter stems, shorter side shoots that will then flower. So the next step, once you've trained in your canes, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 main canes in here at the moment, which is fine for this space. Now what we want to do, so these are the main canes, and then off the main cane you get side shoots. So as you can see here, this is a cane, and then off it are side shoots. Now this one is a very long side shoot. We'll probably keep this one in here just because it's filling a space. So for next year, this will continue to grow, and for next year we'll be able to fill a space at the top. So we're actually going to leave this one unpruned, but you can see the one next to it is probably 6 inches long. Now what we want to be doing with all of these side shoots is thinking that they will produce your flowers for this year. So you want to make sure you're getting flowers where you want them. So as a general rule, we would count from the main cane about 3 buds up, and by a bud, at this time of year, you'll see that they're sort of red, pink, swollen bits here. This is a bud. So coming from the main cane, what you'll see is like marks on the stem, and then from there you get like a horizontal line, and then a pink swollen bud comes out of it. So you really want to be cutting back to about 3 buds. So like so. So we want to be cutting just above a bud at a 45-degree angle away from the bud. And that here, this bud will then produce this year's growth. So you'll get new bits coming out of here, leaves, and then your flowers. So this will flower here. And this is what you want to be doing to the rest of the rows now. So coming along to other sections. So if we look at bits on this cane over here, so this is your main cane. As you can see, it's going up the structure, but the bits coming off it are going to be your side shoots. So you've got a very long wispy one in here, So again, if we count 1, 2, 3, 3 or 4 buds here, cut that right back. You're generally leaving, it's about 2 inches roughly. So that's the general rule. So I will go over the whole rows and trim them back to about 2 inches, 3 buds. When you've got a rose trained more vertically than horizontally, like this one, what we want to be doing is creating more growth at the bottom. So for example, we have some longer side shoots here. You've got quite a few. Now, if we were to cut them all to 3 buds, they'd all flower at the same height roughly, especially on these two. You know, you'd be cutting here and they'd flower in the same place. Whereas really we want to be staggering the heights of the flowering so that we're getting flowering the whole way up the rows. So with this one here, I will count 3 buds on this. 1, it's more tricky when there's things on it. So we'll cut 1 here. So that's about 3 inches. And what we'll do with this one is we'll leave this one longer, so it will flower higher up. So if we do another, let's say another foot, so if we take it up to here, off there, there's a bud right here that I've cut to. So now what you'll get is you'll get flowering here. You'll then, let's cut this one back a little bit. You'll get flowering here, and now we're also going to get flowering here. So that's the aim we're trying to do with climbing roses, is you get to choose where you want the flowers to grow. And by cutting back the side shoots, that's promoting the new flowers. So I'll do that. See on these that the growth for this year is so thin and weak. These will not be strong enough to hold flowers. So instead of cutting these right back to 3 buds, we'll just remove them. You've got 1 at the top here and 1 down the middle. Now, to be honest, the whole branch is quite weak. So what we'll do is we'll take it right back to the main cane. So we'll remove all of this section. Like so. But anything thinner than a pencil thickness, just remove it, because it's just not going to be strong enough to hold flowers this year. Okay, so you can see a better picture now of the framework we're going for. So these are all the main canes. Off the main canes, we've then got all your side shoots, which we've now staggered. So you've got some down here at lower levels, then you've got some higher up, and then some even higher. And then you may get a few off these ones, but generally these are going to be your growth for next year. So we've trained it into the structure, and then we're promoting growth by trimming the other bits back. There's no crossing stems now. Everything's got a space to grow, and all the main ones are tied in. So now we've pruned the whole rows, a very good shape. The last thing you want to do, because we're having such mild winters, you'll see that there's still quite a lot of leaves, the old leaves. If we were to leave all of these leaves on the plant, all that will happen is this fungus will then just spread to the new growth, and we're just spreading disease. So we want to be removing, you can either do it with your hands or with secateurs, go around and snip off all of last year's foliage until we've got plain canes, just by themselves. Make sure not to cut any buds. Any of this foliage all needs to come off. And then don't leave it on the ground. Never leave it on the ground. Make sure you're then disposing of this. And anything you've left on the ground while you're pruning, or generally throughout the season, you want to be picking up and getting rid of, because it will just spread more disease. So I'll just finish taking off all these leaves. So that's your climbing rose trained and pruned for this year.